And hello from the Region Media offices, where it's been another absolutely enormous year in 2022, one with so many changes for the Canberra community and for us here at Region 2. For me, one of the biggest stories of the year was the federal election, the extraordinary surprise of Senator Zed Seselja losing his seat in the Senate. But I thought we'd do a run around and see what everybody else thought. Lottie Twyford is our Assembly reporter. Lottie, what was the standout story for you?
So a big one in ACT politics this year was when it was discovered the CIT was awarding millions of dollars in unclear, jargon-filled contracts to a skills and complexity thinker.
And weren't we amused when we read some of the skills and complexity thinkers' work? That was pretty extraordinary. Karen Starmer is our senior business writer. Karen, what about you?
The standout story for me has got to be about Canberra innovation. We are such an innovation city, and this story about the bushfire.io app was one close to my heart. I actually used this app in its infancy when reporting from the bushfires in 2019-20, and the Innovation Network awarded a $30,000 grant to the developer of this app, and it's now been used in WA and is going to the US. So big success for our city.
And a hugely collected local story. Kim Treasure, who's our content director but also lives down the coast. The regional part is so important to what we do here at Region Media. What was the big story for you from that part of the world?
Look, I think weather is always a big story in the bush, and this year, of course, we've had all the floods. Our coverage, I think, was fantastic on the ground in Wagga. Obviously, there's a lot of people still cleaning up after the floods, and our thoughts are with you this Christmas because it's a tough time. But yes, weather, always.
It is always the weather. And actually, the opening up of our Region Riverina office was also an enormous thing for us as a company. Stay tuned for more news in the new year. Morgan McGugan's in charge of our social media. Morg, what was big on the socials?
Big one on social media, and probably my personal favourite would be a group of lads who went camping just outside Canberra. They were hit with torrential rain, damaging wind in a terrible storm, but they clung on to the beers and clung on to the tent, and they managed to get through and still managed to have a great time, and everyone ended up happy. So that was probably my favourite for the year.
Those stories just get incredible traction. Chris Johnson is our public sector editor. Chris the Elf, just here next to me. Probably not so much the camping at Good Hope, but what was a strong standout for you, Chris?
Well, I joined Region after the election, so what has been really interesting in what I'm doing is covering what this new government is doing to the public service, and all of the reform they're pushing through, and all of the layoffs that already happened. So that's been great. But the most fun I've had here is just, besides being given this hat, the most fun, it was just the other night, a few of us went to do a story on trap shooting. We got to hold guns. So
I will point out that actually Michelle, our videographer, who is behind the camera, is the best shot in the whole darn office. Evelyn Karatzis is our newest recruit to Region. Evelyn, you've had a really big year learning all about journalism. Tell me about the story that stood out for you.
I think a story that stood out the most for me was my coverage on the outbreak of leptospirosis in Canberra and the South Coast. Unfortunately, I covered the first death in the ACT, but I also raised awareness for the community to get everyone to check in with their vets.
Yeah. And look, that made a huge difference, and that probably brings us to another thing that's really important to us here at Region, and that's giving. So our message this year is that it's been a tough couple of years for Canberra and for our whole community throughout the southeast and the Riverina. It would be fantastic if when you're buying presents and if you're celebrating with your family that you also take the opportunity to give. We've been down to the RSPCA this morning. We work with them really closely, and we took huge hampers full of gifts and treats for all the animals that are in the shelters. But think about lots of our friends, Men's Link, the Canberra Hospital, Helping ACT, Ronald McDonald House, Hands Across Canberra, all sorts of organisations that do great jobs for us here in Canberra. So please give where you live and do something great for people who are in need. St Vincent de Paul's another great one to donate your extra holiday dollars to. But from all of us here, we've got lots more news, lots more community stories, lots more good things to bring you in 2023 in Canberra, the capital region, the Riverina, and right across the southeast. So from all of us here at Region, including HR staff Toby and Mr. Smiggle, 1, 2, 3, Merry Christmas!